Ahoy there, Captain Benzie here, coming at you with another video for Eve Echoes, although today's video is going to be a little bit different to usual. I do apologise to anyone who doesn't like the vertical layout for a video. Unfortunately, Reddit does not seem to allow you to go into a landscape mode, so I am going to have to do this one vertical. That said, what's on screen isn't really important. This is going to be me responding to the AMA that I put out. Basically, I put out a post onto Reddit saying that I wanted to make a video AMA, or Ask Me Anything. Basically, ask me questions here and I'll respond to them all in a video. This video, the one that you're watching and listening to right now. I said I thought it could be fun and might help me understand what Reddit wants, whilst also allowing me to actually explain how I think and answer questions on who I am. So to go a step further on that point there, you may not know about me, but I do suffer from two things, or suffer's not necessarily the right word. I am autistic, and I also suffer from clinical depression, a serotonin deficiency. Now that means I can sometimes come across, especially in text, as a little bit abrasive, just to put it lightly. If I've got a point that I want to make, I sometimes go a little bit over the top, and sometimes when I'm typing in text, well, I'm just not good at reading intonation in text, let alone actually adding my own intonation in text. So chances are, if I've responded to you on Reddit or in the comment section, I'm probably not being as rude as you think I am. I try not to be rude where possible, but my text doesn't come across that way. I thought this video might be an insight into sort of understanding me, and also allowing me to answer some of the community's questions on Eve Echoes. So what we're going to do is essentially dive straight through, and you'll see that I'm not curating this. I'm not going to be looking at some of the questions and skipping over them. I haven't picked the ones I like. I'm going to be going through the entire thread and responding to all of them. So let's start, because this could get a little bit long. The first one from Pray for Moju. Eve Echoes API, any insight? The data seems like it's already stored, kill mails, deaths per system, resources mined. Being a software dev, even if they release the API endpoints, I know the community would build the front end for NetEase. Seems like a huge content win, as it would allow the community to create mini-events, tournaments to compete with each other on certain leaderboards. Yeah. I wholeheartedly agree on this. An API is something that I know a lot of people really want, and we've asked for this literally since the open beta. Probably even in the alpha, but I wasn't in the alpha. Even in the open beta, we were asking for an API. The developers said it's on the to-do list, it's just very, very low down, and I kind of think this should possibly be pushed a little bit higher. Now, I don't know. Basically, the developers have said that they want to do an API, it's just a lot of work. And I don't really know how much, how true that is. I can only take the developer's word for it, that it is a lot of work, and they've kind of put it on a back burner. My advice is that if this is something we want, we need to basically bombard the suggestions channel on Discord and any other suggestions like in-game, etc., to really ask for those. Basically, I think this would be a really useful thing. And yeah, just give us the endpoints for the API. Everyone, the software devs will figure that out, we'll hook into it, and then we can go from there. Let us do the work for you, NetEase. Psychology Powerful 40. So lately it's felt like the player base is shrinking, and as NetEase continues to add paid events, this seems to drive the player base further away. Generally, it's expected that player numbers will fall off after the first year as the game starts to stabilise and players find they either like it and want to stay, or move on. In watching your videos, you appear to have a good idea of the pulse of the game. Thank you. Where do you see this going moving forward, and what, if any, changes would you make to keep the game fun and interactive for both hardcore and casual players? Well, so first off, I think the player base shrinking isn't actually happening at the rate people are saying. I've had some interesting comments this week where people have said things like, oh, people are leaving in bulk, they're selling off their accounts. And it's like, I've seen 2 people sell their account. I'm in pretty much every major Alliance Discord, at least in the public channels, and just not getting anything really there to that effect. People tend to do the whole the sky is falling. An old friend of mine who is an MMO developer once said, you know you're doing it right if half the community is basically, complaining that the sky is falling. You are never going to please everyone, and that's usually moving in the right direction. If the sky isn't falling, then you've probably got a dead game, is the point that he was making. Anyway, as for where do I see this going moving forward, what if any changes would I make? I think events like the ones we've just had are generally fine, and before you cut this video off, I think that enticing people to spend money on something that isn't actually at all overpowered is pretty cool. We need people to be spending. Remember, NetEase just got a big financial hit this year, and they're probably looking at a lot of their games going, is this one making money, and looking at the chopping block for multiple of them. So the developers need to make sure that this game is financially viable. Otherwise, we lose the entire game. So big events that entice people to spend are fine. I've got no problem with that until it starts to break the game. And this event, I don't think, has broken the game. It's, at best, people have got a nanocore, or they've spent a ridiculous amount of money to ultimately win a ship that they could have just bought by spending that amount or less on the Plex itself. So for me, it's a money-making scheme. Yes, it's a fundraiser, is how I look at it. I do, however, and this is where the big sort of star asterisk comes in here, I am very disappointed that the Neon Rain had nothing for standard players to actually log in and do. Ultimately, go back to things like the Crimson Harvest, and you could log in and there were these sites that you could find and go through, and if you cleared those sites, there were skins in containers at the end. It was something to actually log in and play and find. I think an event does need that aspect to it, because this particular Neon Rain, my alts, all I've done is literally log in, collect the rewards, and then log straight back out again. It's not enticing me to play, is the problem here. Anyway, let's move on. Otto Mechanic, I love that name so much. Do you feel that a more EO play style mission setup would make for more engaging play? For example, mission mechanics as well as agent interaction. I get the feeling that the agent side of things, not to mention the LP propagation through Empire loyalty, is one of the key components missing for encounter enjoyment. And yeah, I've put here loaded question, but absolutely a good one. And yes, I do agree. I think that this is a big part of it. For those of you who don't know, in EVE Online, you don't just, like, pull up a menu and pick missions off it. You dock up at a station, you request contact with an agent at that station who will then give you missions, and those missions follow on one from the other. As you complete those missions, you will get LP, or loyalty points, for that particular faction. So if you're docked at a station in Pater and getting missions there, you're going to be earning Minmatar Republic LP. If you dock in Amar, you're going to be earning, and doing the missions there, you're going to be earning Amar Empire LP, and so on, and you can use those in special LP stores for that particular faction, and you're able to buy things like, for example, in the Minmatar, the Republic Fleet Firetail, particular ammunition and things like that that are exclusive to that faction. It also gives you a sort of progressive storyline. Like if you're playing a game like World of Warcraft, you start off in Elwyn Forest killing wolves because, oh, you need to go and kill the wolves, there's too many in the forest, and then it starts to escalate and you get a whole story that leads into the next area, and you are actually a character following on this plotline. Yeah, I think this is missing from EVE Echoes. The missions do technically have a story that then culminates in the final mission itself, like Bad Hair Day or Sweet Poison or whatever, but ultimately no one really reads those missions because you don't get them in any particular order, and it's so random that you don't necessarily know that the missions that you're doing are actually even related to each other. Also, mission variety. Yes, mission setup is a big thing here. In EVE Echoes, our missions are warp in, kill wave, wait for wave, kill wave, wait for wave, kill wave, warp out. That's literally our encounters in EVE Echoes. In EVE Online, I've said this before, you get encounters where, for example, you have to loot a container, and that container is locked. You can either hack it whilst the enemies are attacking you, or you can try and kill them and see if one of them will drop the key, or you can try and force it through other ways. You might have one where you've got a particular NPC character that you need to either spawn by killing so many rats, and then either you continue to thin the herd of the rats, or you can just kill the NPC, and if you kill it quick enough and warp away, mission complete. Or there are installations, things like, you know, moon bases that you have to blow up, and again, you can run the gauntlet and just ignore the rats and try and blow the station up and get away before you're destroyed, or you can sit there and thin the herd and then kill the station. It adds a lot of excitement and just difference to, you know, oh, what's this mission? Is it just to jump in and do it? And I think that the repetition of just jump in, just do the same thing over and over again, and the only thing is ISK. The difference between a Minmatar or a Galente storyline mission is literally the type of ships that are in it. That's it. The storyline no one cares about, and the actual playstyle and what happens in those missions, again, no one cares about. So yes, absolutely, I think that that is one of the key components missing from encounter enjoyment. Lord Rahman, you have to fly only one ship hull for a month. What do you choose? It's going to be a Condor 2 Interceptor, as much as I hate that. I'd probably stop playing for the month. But it's the only ship that does everything that I want it to. I could sit there and say, oh yeah, my Typhoon 2, yeah, I'll sit in that and do some ratting, and, you know, be able to do that, but then I can't go exploring or do anything like that. At least with the Condor 2 Interceptor, I can go roaming, I can go exploring, I can literally do everything. So the one upside, I guess, of Interceptors being overpowered at everything is that you can pick one ship and that would be it. I'm going to say that's going to be a very dull month for me. I really don't want to do that. Please don't make me do that. Martin Schilder, my apologies if I pronounce any of these wrong, by the way. Do you ever go out on roams, or do you mostly stay within Catskill space? I think a lot of people want a Benzie kill mail. Do you think that's because of your YouTube channel you can't play the game normally? Very cool questions here. First one, do I go out on roams? Yes, I do. Often I do this on alts. I do have alts set up for numerous different things, and if I'm in the mood for a roam, I'll often go on an alt because I'm not immediately hounded and harassed and hunted down. Recently, though, I have been out on Captain Benzie, my noted main character. You can always tell that's me because it's got a special medal, a unique content creator medal, so you can always tell if it's the genuine article or someone pretending to be me, and I've been going around exploring and trying to document every star system in New Eden. I can't tell you which regions I'm going in, because yes, everyone wants a Captain Benzie kill mail, and if I told you where I'm going, that's just going to result in me being hunted, but ultimately, do keep your eyes peeled. I will eventually be coming to a region near you. Second question though, do I think that because of my YouTube channel I can't play the game normally? Yes, this is absolutely a thing, and I know it sounds like hashtag first world problems, but basically, when I'm playing any mobile game that is not Eve Echoes or Infinite Lagrange because of the sponsorship there, I feel guilty. I feel like, oh, I should be playing Eve Echoes, I should be working on content for Eve Echoes. If I sit and play even a game like, for example, Crying Suns, or Super Mech Arena, things that Super Mecha Champion, sorry. I enjoy these games and I love playing them, but I feel like I should be spending my time in Eve Echoes. If I'm on my phone playing a game and it's not Eve Echoes or Infinite Lagrange, I kind of feel like I'm at work and sort of sneakily playing games when I shouldn't be. It's even worse when I sit there and try and play something like Deathloop or Returnal, which I've been going through recently. Control, I went through Control Ultimate Edition on PS5. That was the only game that I didn't feel guilty playing, whilst I should have been, in inverted commas, should have been on Eve Echoes. And that's because the game was so damn good. But yeah, it really does actually affect you. You start looking at the game and, you know, even when I'm in Eve Echoes, I start to look at everything and think, how can I make content out of this? How is this relevant to what I can do for content? So yeah, it definitely changes how I play. OK Code 9126. Do I think deliveries will ever be a fleshed out career in Eve Echoes? I don't know. As Zeotroll here says, even in EVE Online it's not really profitable. I doubt NetEase will ever be able to solve it. I don't want to be a naysayer, but I kind of get the opinion that they'll improve it. I think it'll get better. Will it ever be all that much fleshed out? Not really. Unless they take my advice and go for the whole mining sync thing. Like, for example, have some stations in a Mars space want spodumene, and this station also in a Mars space wants Pyrex Series and things like that, and they will buy these for a set price, because then if you know one of these is currently, and have it on different prices, you find one of these that has a high price, and that price is higher than the market, you could buy it from the market and haul it out there and bring a load of other deliveries with you. That, I think, could be an interesting way to flesh out the hauling career and deliveries, but as for actual player-to-player deliveries and things like that, I honestly think that whilst they could increase the financial reward for it, the fact that it is almost an entirely AFK-able career, and I know people will get angry at me for that, I know it's not completely AFK, I know there's more to it than that, but the point is, it is probably the only career you can actually AFK to a certain extent. You know, you literally pick up something, you set the autopilot, and then you close the game. You can't do that with ratting, you can't do that with mining. You can do it with industry, though. So I think there is a certain risk assessment there, where the risk to ISK has to, you know, sort of fall into place, and I don't think hauling, because of that, will ever be a truly lucrative career. It's one of those things that can be fun, and it's a great little moneymaker on the side if you're not looking for serious intensive gameplay. Powerful ad 7756. What's the best or worst thing that NetEase has taken away to and from the game? I'm going to say that the worst thing they took away from the game, for me, was the covert ops destroyers. Not just because I wanted a covert ops ship, you know, Captain Benzie is now a covert ops main. I wouldn't even care if they'd taken those away and then just replaced them with something like the Thrasher Fleet issue 2 or something. There's just the fact that there's no turret destroyers at Tech 10 that, you know, are actually combat capable really, really upset me, and I was looking forward to flying the Thrasher covert ops. I wouldn't have minded losing the covert ops, I just wish we still had a Thrasher turret destroyer at Tech level 10, and same for, obviously, for the Coercer, the Cormorant, and the Catalyst. So to me, that's the worst thing that they've taken away from the game. The best thing they've added, though, honestly, might throw a bit of a curveball, it's probably the translation feature. I'm still almightily upset that the translation feature is locked behind Omega, and I'm doing everything I can to get that changed. But the translation feature, in my opinion, is the best thing that NetEase have ever added to Eve Echoes. I'm going to say exploration if you want a content answer, or nihilus. Sort of the scanning, I think, is something that I've really enjoyed them adding. It's not perfect, it's sort of... Some people have said it's on life support. I don't agree it's on life support, it's just not where it needs to be at all. Definitely needs improvement. Lord Roman says Thrasher covert ops. Yep, there it is. All turret covert ops, motto mechanic. Cannons, no covert ops, no assault frigs, like they just forgot they exist. Yeah, where's my Rifter assault? And things like that. The list should stuff they should have balanced a year ago is way too massive. They baby lasers and shields. Armor is getting better but still needs work. Does it? I actually think armor's pretty solid right now. I don't think shield or armor is better than the other, and I'm being completely honest. That's my opinion. Lasers, I definitely think are good. Missiles are close. No, I think missiles are amazing. Again, except for torpedoes, probably need a little bit of a boost. Cannons need help? Probably not. I think weapon balance actually is pretty good at the moment. I think some of the ship hulls need balancing, like where some ships are getting ridiculous amount of damage to an already powerful weapon. Apocalypse Striker. Seriously, I joke on that, but compare an Apocalypse Striker to a Tempest Striker and just look at what those two ships can do side by side, and the Apocalypse Striker is clearly hands down the better option. It's a better brawler, it's a better sniper. You get more range out of the Tempest Striker, but just lasers are so good. Lasers really, really are good right now. But I do think weapons are fine, just the ships need to be... like, tweaked a little. And Bradrick, Destroyer Covert Ops ships, SMH, yeah. Powerful Ad 7756, another one. What kill mail do you remember the most and why? Now, I said I was actually going to go through this, but I decided I'm not going to dig through this. I'm just going to go in my head and think about what happened there. And it is, simply put, going to be the Dramiel up against a Prophecy Command. I had a Prophecy Command sitting there, pretty much AFK. Dramiel engaged it, started orbiting it, got it all the way down, halfway through its armor. Then the Prophecy sort of woke up and started to attack back. And there was some mad sort of dive in. He nearly killed me. I dived out of the fight on sort of like low armor, jumped back in and sort of just finished him off with little hit and run tactics, disengaging every time that I needed to once the damage control unit went offline and things like that. It was just a heck of a fight, and taking out a Prophecy Command in a Dramiel just feels good. Okay, yeah, I got a head start for it, but it was just a fun fight. Gandarolf the White asks, what have I brought my family for Christmas this year? It's not all about the game, right? Honk. Now... obviously I'm going to have to tell my my wife and the niece and nephew not to watch this video. Honestly, for our niece is 16 and she has been for a long time. She loves her sweets and chocolates. Takes ages to eat them, but just like really enjoys them. And she's always wanted a sort of stocking, like, you know, the stocking that you hang over the fireplace, typical Christmas stocking. So we picked up one of those, got it completely personalised with her name and all that on it. And we're going to stuff it full of sweets from the UK. It's in the mail on the way to Zimbabwe now. That'll be hers. For my nephew, and again, please tell me he's not listening to this, he's going through that sort of phase where he wants haircuts and new stylish things and that all the time. So we're getting him a nice pair of clippers and sort of hair clippers and that, so he can shave his beard and do his hair and all this kind of thing and look nice for his new girlfriend. As for my wife, well, I can't tell you that because she does watch this video, but it's a pretty big one and I think she's going to absolutely love it. Hey Benzie, when did you play EVE Online and for how long? Do you miss aspects of it or do you feel Echoes is strictly better? Iceman 1080. Now, first of all, I did play EVE Online first. I think it was 2013, 2012, 2011, somewhere there that I started EVE Online with Paul and had a great time there for a long time, and I've dived in and out over the years ever since then. Things that I miss, aspects of it, there are definitely aspects that I miss. I miss wormholes, I miss functional exploration, although admittedly in EVE Echoes I do prefer the scanning minigame. I just miss the hacking minigame and the fact that sites are actually there to find. I don't know, I don't think EVE Echoes is strictly better, but I equally don't think EVE Online is strictly better. There are things I do miss, genuinely, like, for example, how ship slot layouts work. In EVE Online, your high slots come in two types. You might have 8 high slots, but only 7 of them are for turrets. The other one is a launcher, and that launcher one, you then put like a probe launcher, or you could put a Nosferatu, because Nosferatu's a high slot in EVE Online. Or you could put all kinds of things in there, like a little rocket pod or something, which I used to use on my on my Rifter. Wow, that's embarrassing. Stuff like that, it was pretty cool. Plus, knowing that you had different low slots and mid slots between different ship types. Like if you look at, say, the Hound, the Manticore, the Nemesis, and the Purifier, in EVE Online, they actually have different slot layouts. It's not just 333, it is actually, they've got different mids and different lows to each other. And that's because mid slots are where your shield tanking modules are. If you want shield extenders or shield boosters, those go in your mid slots. Your armor tanking modules and your weapon upgrades, like gyro stabilizers and that, do go in the low slots still, but mid slots are also where your tackle and your propulsion mods go. So if you want to shield tank something, and it's only got, say, 3 mid slots, then you're going to be having to sacrifice your propulsion, so Afterburner and Micro Warp Drive, and tackle, like Warp Disruptors and Stasis Webifiers and stuff. So I kind of miss that, but I do also like EVE Echoes' sort of more straightforward simplicity. Low slots are tanking modules, mid slots are sub-weapons, high slots are weaponry. It's simple, it's straightforward, it does lose some of the nuance, but yeah. I still have homework. Well, go and do it then. What are your thoughts on the updated roadmap? This one I did a video of yesterday, and yeah, my thoughts are still there. I really want the balance patch. I think the balance patch is probably the most important thing we could have in the game right now, because there's so much stuff that needs fixing before we look at more content. But the other stuff on there, that whole scanning the gravity waves and the dead star or whatever, dull star, that's exciting, and I'm looking forward to that. Dark Wolf X2244, what's your opinion on the pay-to-win aspect of Echoes? Does it exist? In order for a game to be pay-to-win, you need to be able to win at the game. You cannot win at Echoes. You can sit there and say, oh, but in a one-on-one fight, if I've got more skill points than the other person, then I'm at an advantage. Yes, but a straight one-on-one fight rarely happens. It's usually then down to the fittings and the pilot skill directly, like your ability to manually pilot, knowing when to engage, when to disengage, how to cycle your modules, etc. And even then, I've been playing the game longer. If a guy joins the game today and drops $1,000 on things like Plex, he's still not going to be at the point that I'm at in the game. There is no pay to win. There is merely a pay to advance yourself faster. If you don't want to have to grind out enough ISK to, buy yourself a battleship, you've just hit Tech 10 and you really, really want to fly a Raven Striker, you can just drop Plex and get yourself the ISK. That doesn't make it pay to win. It just means you got that battleship faster. You've still got to have the actual skill points for it. You've still got to reach Tech 10, and if you don't know how to fit that battleship or how to fly it as an actual individual behind the controls of the game, you're still going to lose it. So there is no pay to win in EVE Echoes. There is a pay to advance faster, and in occasion like the Neon Rain nanocores, there's a pay to get a slightly better nanocore than everyone else that looks really awesome, but ultimately makes your ship super expensive, harder to insure, and you're still going to lose it to a field of interceptors anyway. Indust B, what has been your favourite or most memorable moment in EVE Echoes so far? Politically, my favourite moment politically has to be when Momosaurus got my hat and unboxed that live on stream, then went into work on Monday, and when her boss said, oh, what did you get up to at the weekend? Apparently her response was, I defeated an African warlord and stole his hat. And that to me is amazing. That's just awesome. PvP-wise, some of the dumbass kills that I've had in-game, some of the times when I've lost my ship to stupid things, a particularly memorable one, for example, on video, is me launching my worm at not Cormorant, what are they called? Caracal Navy issue, and the Caracal Navy issue just utterly blapping me, or throwing my succubus face first into a Cinnabal and losing it. Stuff like that. That's what I love about PvP. We've had some really cool moments, and one of my, that jumps to the top of my head PvP-wise, is jumping through a gate in my Hurricane to find an old friend from an old alliance, Ozia, sitting there in a retriever, blapping him and then going, oh, hi there, Ozia, how are you doing? And just having this really cool chat. Or flying through one of Silent Assassin's gate camps. Those are so much fun. Like, I don't mean that in a mocking way. I genuinely don't mean that in a mocking way. I really enjoy that. I fly through N-Rail, I hit one of these gate camps, and it's usually Silent Assassin and a load of his friends, and I talk in local whilst piloting a covert ops ship through the bubble to the gate. It's always a fun side of things. Reporting-wise, I'm not certain what you mean here. Favourite reporting moment? I'm going to leave that one blank. Favourite community moment, though, there have been some absolutely epic memes. I think some of the Newt Newt stuff recently is just incredible. Some of the memes against me have been great as well. Apparently you guys enjoyed some of my memes as well, which was pretty cool community moments. That said, my favourite moment, or at least memorable moment in EVE Echoes, has to be watching a whole group of pilots come together and do a massive memorial for a friend that they've lost. That is super touching and only possible in a game like this. What do I feel the opposite? What was a real low for you? Politically, I don't want to say which alliance it was, but when Catskull first left Cache, we located in an area. We then had some supposed friends basically muscle in and say, oh, well, we live here now, and just treat us like absolute crap. That was not fun. And yeah, I think that leadership has now changed. That was just a pretty not fun time for us, watching supposed friends treat you like the scum on the bottom of their boots. Low points on PvP for me was probably spending 4 hours looking for footage in the crew war, then losing it to a gate camp of 8 people due to a bug, due to the ship just not following autopilot and warping away, and then getting mocked on Reddit for it. That was not fun, like, at all. Reporting-wise, again, community-wise, the low point in the community definitely has to be when the propaganda gets too much. I think people forget that if you didn't have enemies in-game, this game would be boring and dull as all hell. You need enemies, and thus enemies in-game are just friends under a different banner. They can still be friends outside of the game, and I think the downside for the community is when people forget that, which fortunately isn't too common. Nathaniel Switch, would you think about showcasing off-the-wall hybrid builds or adding to the videos you already made to include, of course, the budget build as you often do, but also the extreme ISK build and PvP versus PvE large mod upsizing, i.e. faction cruisers can double large mod relatively easy. Maybe we can have builds given via Discord or Reddit and you can showcase on the test server. I actually do this. I've done this with things like the Hurricane logistics. I did this with the Omen Sniper, where I added large rapids to it. This is a very hit-and-miss thing for me, because for me, they're really fun, and I love showcasing this kind of stuff, but you always get some asshat out there who drops comments and review bombs it, basically, saying, oh, you could be showcasing X, Y, or Z, but instead you're putting missiles on an Omen. LOL. And it's just like, it's one of those things that those videos, as much fun as they are for me to put out, and I love showcasing the community. I loved doing those Destroyer videos where I showcased footage from Frosty Jack and Rahman. Those were great, and I'd love to do more stuff like that. But stuff where I do weird ships, like weird fits on different ships, they don't tend to do particularly well. That doesn't mean that, you know, I should stop doing them. Just, they're tough to pull out. You know, it's unusual to find a build like that. And the fact that the video then tanks and doesn't do particularly well can be quite disheartening. It's one of those things I've always said, if people want me to do it, I'm happy to do it, just the view numbers aren't there. Not that view numbers ever stopped me from doing something, because Catskull Academy videos take me about 5 times as long as the average video to make, get a quarter of the views, but ultimately they're what I really enjoy doing. Livid Experience 463. On a scale of 1 to 10, how much do you miss the hat? About an 8. I miss that thing, but it's nice to know that it still sends me messages in-game from time to time, just, you know, checking up on me and seeing how things are doing. GenFed, I hope you enjoy the hat. Mr. Espresso, how fast can an unladen swallow fly? African or European? MechMedic130, what is your favourite event NetEase has done so far? For me, it was Halloween 2020, most fun I've ever had in the game. Yes, Crimson Harvest was amazing. That is absolutely the one I would bring back. I miss that. The skins were awesome. The actual anomalies were great fun. And the fact that it encouraged PvP as well was amazing. I really liked that, and I hope that they do redo it. I don't think every event should be like that, but I do think the occasional event like that from time to time, heck, every year, just run that exact event again, maybe add some new skins to it, you know, to some of the ships that didn't get a Halorange or a Grimace skin. Add those to some new skin ships, and then redo the event. Hell, I would be super happy with that. Every event since has been a cash grab, says Zeotroll. Sad to see this game turn into another gacha game. I'm assuming you mean gacha game. It's not a gacha game. A gacha game is where you can... For Eve Echoes to be a gacha game, you would need to have special boxes that you opened that gave you random ships, and that would be the only way to actually get those ships. I.e., if you wanted to fly a Typhoon, you need to keep buying the Typhoon battle crate over and over again until eventually you get the piece. This is not a gacha game. If you want to complain about Eve Echoes, that's fine. Please just learn your terminology. This is not a gacha game. We're not even close to a gacha game. As for every event since has been a cash grab, I'm disagree. Every event has had a monetized property to it, yes. But I think NetEase have tried different things, and it's been interesting seeing those. Like the Guardians Gala, I kind of enjoyed. I know a lot of people are like, oh, it's a cash grab because you've got to buy the keys. You didn't have to buy the keys. There was just an incentive to spend money, but there was still content to go out there and do. Yeah, I'd like to see more like the Crimson Harvest, but I don't think every event has to be like that, and I think having like financial incentives in an event is a good thing. It's how this game stays live, it's how the servers stay online, and we keep our game. Bradrick, in your opinion, is Year 2 off to a good start? How can we as a community make it better? What more can we do to get the devs to start putting out balance patches now instead of April? Isn't small fixes better than no fixes? As I say here, thank you for not falling into dev hate. I think that is actually the thing as a community we can do to make it better. I think that when people get annoyed that, for example, the Interstellar Bazaar has no content and it's only paid stuff, they lose their mind and flip out. And you shouldn't. Getting angry, getting upset because the event was aimed at a different group than you. I get a lot of flack for saying this, but I support the community, and that means it includes me supporting the whales. Some people want to be able to spend big sums of money buying random stuff like this. That's what they want to do, and good for them, it helps fund the game. Yeah, it's disappointing that there's no actual content to the Neon Rain. I agree, I'm right up there with you. The difference is I choose to focus on the positives, I stay flying, I keep doing what I enjoy in the game, and if I don't enjoy doing it, well, I stop doing it. That's just how this works. How can we as a community make it better? Do the things you enjoy, and give feedback. Don't get angry, don't get sweary, don't get shouty. That makes people less likely to want to help you. If you sit there ranting and raving and getting aggressive, people just look at you and go, I can't be bothered to read this. And they move on with their life. Give positive, productive, constructive feedback. For example, this Neon Rain event, I personally do not like. I think it's awesome that people are getting these really cool nanocores and they can spend on that, but for those of us who don't have loads of money to spend, there was nothing to do here. That was disappointing. Explain that you are disappointed. Don't be angry and outraged and the sky is falling. Be disappointed. And voice that opinion to the developers. What can we do to get the devs to start putting out balance patches now instead of April? Same thing. Voice that opinion. Not on Reddit. The developers do not read Reddit. Get onto Discord, open up the suggestions channel, politely word that it is absolutely vital that we get balance patches. Please consider doing smaller, more frequent balance patches rather than once or twice a year big sweeping balance patches. This actually helps the developers because it means they don't get a massive change that they need to unravel everything. They can do small changes, incremental changes, and see how that affects things. Ultimately, heck, I would love to set up a sort of, I almost said student council. I would love to set up a community council where people actually give feedback to the developers directly, we collect it from the community, we then pass it and feed it upwards, and vice versa. I guess that's what Joseph's job is, but let's be fair, he's one man, and that's a lot of work to ask of one guy. Keep asking. Get onto Discord, into the suggestions channel, open up the game, go into your AI, there is a function there where you can make suggestions as well. Get your voice heard that way. Politely, respectfully, ask. Make it happen that way. Who is the HR ticket? I am the HR ticket, says Harrowing Goose Noises. Stupid Minna. Why do I hate miners? Every video where they come up, you rail against them, giving them more interesting skills or build shit or better ships. You speak as though we have stockpiles to build anything, when most miner corps have only enough to build for their own alliance. Many times, 2 back-to-back wars will drain everything they have. Also, Orca when? And I say here, this is a solid question as it allows me to address a common misconception. First of all, I do not hate miners. I actually am focused right now, feedback-wise, on getting things fixed for miners. I'm not saying you're an idiot for, wanting more interesting skills, for wanting things like the Orca and the Porpoise. I don't think you're wrong for wanting those things. I don't think you're wrong for wanting the Ion Strip miners. What I do think is that right now, that damages or more. The faster people are able to collect ore right now, the faster it devalues. I've recently created a mining alt. It's currently sitting at tech level 6, and you just cannot make money. I cannot make money on that character at all, because when you're flying a Venture 3, or Venture 2, whichever one it is I'm in, I can't even remember, you can't harvest enough ore to sell for anything meaningful. As a ratting player compared to a mining player, you're just getting so much more ISK. And that's because the people at Tech 10 are able to just strip mine entire belts in the time it takes me to clear one asteroid. That's the problem. That those players are able to sit on vast amounts of ore, and basically, alliances, sorry, I know this from looking at various different projects. Most alliances do have large stockpiles of ore. It's the ISK that tends to be the gatekeeping, even if they don't have enough ore to build a capital ship. We found that in most cases, by the time you've got all the ore that you need to build it, you're still magnitudes of ISK away from having this completed. We just need to have a meaningful way to actually sell ore. That can be done through NPC quests that allow you to just donate ore to a station for a cost, like we have the Pyrex series and that one's already, but have more of those, have them varied, have them spread out further, have ways that players can just give ore to the game and get ISK directly back. That then pushes the price of ore up on the market. We then need to go into the blueprints and reduce the amount of ISK. Literally, I was talking to Nina about this, and the numbers that she suggested, or he suggested, they suggested, ultimately come down to one simple thing. Halve the amount of ISK that you need in order to turn the oven on, and increase the amount of ore and minerals and that by 25%. That ultimately gives you the same value overall, but it means that there is much more of a focus on the actual industrial network, and that will then push those prices up, allow new players to get into mining. Then we can start at looking, now that mining is running, basically the whole point here is that when people are asking for orcas and porpoises and ion and strip miners and new ships and faster ways to mine and all this kind of thing, what they're essentially doing is asking for ways to run that treadmill faster. The treadmill's broken. It's not working properly right now. We need to fix that, which kind of means everyone needs to slack off a bit. I'm not saying stop mining, just back off, let the mining stuff be fixed, then we can go back and add all the exciting new ships and functions later. We need to make sure that the baseline is running before we kill the entire thing even more by adding stuff that it can't support currently. Hopefully that makes sense. Climate Cypher. Benzie, what do you recommend to defeat massive drone swarms in big battles? Better servers. I've put here it's actually a client issue, but the joke wouldn't land as well. People ask, why does this happen to most players? There's kind of an example I give here. Imagine a big group project. You're all given a small part of a big task to do, something like a house. You're all doing a section of the wall. So imagine it's got 4 sides, 4 walls to the outside of this house. Each of those is, say, 20 meters long, and you are each given a 2-meter stretch of wall to build. Unfortunately, 2 meters wide by however tall the house is. Jimmy just isn't keeping up. He's old, he's slow, he was never particularly up to the task, and he just can't handle it. You all finish your segments, but you can't do anything because there's a big section of wall missing, so the roof collapses. The sections that are now where Jimmy hasn't finished his wall, the rest of you don't have something to lean on, so bits start to collapse and fall through. That's basically what's happening when this bugs, because you've got someone who's sitting on a very slow device and it's not able to pass that information quickly enough back and forth to the server, so the server is trying to give everyone else information, but it is incomplete, inaccurate information that then is accruing errors, it's accruing sort of data mismatches where, wait, hang on, this guy says this bit and that guy says that bit, and what's going on here? And it just basically crashes the entire system. The easiest way to clear this up is to ban lower devices. You stop supporting low-end devices, but then you get the problem that you're cutting out a section of your player base. It's a catch-22 situation, and there's no easy fix to this, and it gets me that people are like, oh, you just do this. No, you don't. This is a big, complex programming issue, and we're working on it. So let's go past all of this bit here. Did I play EVE Online or did I start in EVE Echoes? Do I think which I've answered already. Do I think the mobile version will ever be as in-depth? To a certain degree, yes, but in different ways. As I mentioned earlier, like with the ship fitting, EVE Online obviously is more in-depth in ship fitting than EVE Echoes. So ultimately, I think EVE Online is always going to have the more in-depth, the more complex systems. Seriously, look at how much, minerals and materials it ultimately takes at base level to build a single drone in EVE Online. It's insane. You can fill an entire A4 page with material listing and how you're going to actually build this, because you need to make these parts for the drone, and then those parts consist of other sub-parts that are made from minerals and things, kind of like how capital ships are made from different, the capital components. It's like that. EVE Online is always going to be the more complex. In depth, though, it's a different way. If you just mean complex, then EVE Online is always going to be the more complex of the two. In depth, though, basically comes down to the player base and what they do with what we're given. And I honestly think, this might be controversial, but I honestly think that EVE Echoes, as a player base, as a community, is even more enterprising than the EVE Online one. I think the players here actually think outside the box even more. They kind of have to, and they do all these crazy, unusual things that I don't think was initially intended, and that's pretty cool. N7 Jarvis. I'd be interested in talk on ISK per minute gains or risk assessments. It's not something my channel does, or at least that I've seen. They're asking for a breakdown of most ISK per minute along with the risks involved with said action. For example, writing in HiSec will net you X, whereas a risk factor of Y. There's a reason I don't do this in videos, and that's because I want to be able to showcase everything. I try not to talk about things like meta or the best way to do things, because then everyone starts doing it. If you watch certain games, I'm going to use examples of like League of Legends, Vainglory even back in the day, when a content creator goes, look at this, look at how broken this is and how amazingly powerful it is, everyone in the community suddenly shifts to it, and it just causes a real stagnation in the game, and I don't want that to happen here. It's also because those numbers change constantly. Like, literally, if I'd put out a video on them, like, which missions are best and, like, per the time involved, it's going to depend on the ship. It's going to depend on your skills as a player. It's going to depend on so many interlocking factors. It's just not worth my time to do it, because as soon as one of those factors changes, everything changes. And there's just too much to take into account there. Zeotroll account. How many Xeonon accounts have you banned from your Discord? Sorry about the song, but I didn't write it. Be mad at Kernsky. I actually don't even know what's going on here. I don't think I've ever banned any Xeonon accounts. The only time I ban anyone from my Discord, honestly, has been things like repeated Nazi memes, or when one particular character, whose name I will not mention for the sake of, like, giving him even more glory, basically sat on the official EVE Echoes Discord, ranting and raving about how I was lying to the community, how I was a hack, how that I didn't listen to anyone and I just made stuff up. And this was back with Exploration first came out, that I was lying about the different minimum scan rares and things like that. I then put out a video proving it. But he was saying that I was lying about all of this, calling me a hack, basically all kinds of slanderous things. Then came onto my Discord and tried to enter a giveaway competition that I was putting up, at which point I was like, nah mate, that's not how this works. Like, cheeky, but no. That's not how this works. I don't expect you to toe the line and worship my feet, but you don't get to sit there and badmouth me in front of everyone and then expect me to give you stuff. That doesn't happen. I don't really ban for anything other than very serious reasons. My Discord, for some reason, has a whole thing there, people going, oh, it's Benzie being a dictator. No. I respect your beliefs until your beliefs are intolerant. You want to tell me that trans rights aren't human rights? You want to tell me that trans people don't exist or that gay people don't exist, and that's morally wrong and things like that? If you want to sit there and tell me that, the whole problem with the world is that the Holocaust never happened or bullshit like that, I'm going to ban you from my server. And it's clearly there in the rules. If you break the rules, you get banned. Simple. That one guy, 6262, how can we go on strike against NetEase giving us useless updates while there's still major issues in the game? Don't. That's really not a good idea. The whole reason that they are putting these big money spenders in is because they are worried about the game being shut down by not being financially viable. If you then prove that the game's not financially viable, we lose the game. You give feedback. You don't go on strike here. This isn't some kind of union. You give feedback. If you don't like how they've done an event, explain why you don't like it. Don't just get angry and yell that it's unfair that whales can buy things, because that's ridiculous. Yes, this event is just whales being able to buy things. Ultimately, the problem with this event isn't that, oh my god, people can spend money. It's that there's nothing to do except spend money. And that feels bad. I'm with you on that, just, yeah, no. Downgrade to Basic Omega or even Alpha for a month and tell them why. Nothing like a shot in the old googlies to get their attention. One, you're never going to do this with enough to actually cause a huge thing, and two, if you did, that's going to cause big problems in the game anyway that may cause a shutdown. Seriously, the game is unstable right now. NetEase as a company is eyeing around its different products and working out which ones are viable. Don't push buttons. Puzzle-headed Rule 239. Assuming the developers keep the gacha trashiness and idiotic decisions, would you agree the game would die in 1 to 3 years? This is an incredibly biased and loaded opinion. You're basically giving your opinions and stating them as sort of a fact here. Again, there is no gacha in Eve Echoes. There's a random chance of getting an item. That is not a gacha game. Seriously, a gacha game is something like Genshin Impact, where if you want a particular character, you need to keep rolling until that character appears, and you have to work with what you're doing. Infinite Lagrange, I could argue, is a gacha game, because you only get blueprints through random crates. And yeah, if you don't have those crates, you don't get blueprints, so that's a gacha game. Some people like that, by the way, but Eve Echoes absolutely isn't. As for gacha trashiness and idiotic decisions, sorry, if you think it's an idiotic decision, it probably means you don't see the big enough picture here. As I said, the whole point of this is that theoretically they had so much time to make an event, they put all of it into making sure they could raise the money and capital required in order to fund this game and keep it viable. Yeah, they didn't put anything in for the humble player. That is a problem, I agree, but saying, oh, this whole thing's trash, that's not giving an opinion anymore. You're just kind of dumping on things for the sake of it. Wandering Witness. My main is currently sitting at tier 7 and I have a big drive to PvP. What advice would you give to a pilot to successfully PvP before endgame? Skill into either cruisers or into frigates. Pick a ship. You can start at Tech 4. Tech 4 with something like a Condor 2 or a Slasher 2 is a good way to start PvP. You just need to know where to look, how to pick your targets, and go from there. Join in with roams as well. If anyone in your alliance or corporation is going on a PvP roam, ask if you can go and ask what ships you can bring. I've seen Tech 5 players turn up to a PvP frigate roam in literally a burst 2, just so that they can sit there and do the whole, like, a little bit of repping here and there between fights. And that's really cool. It's thinking outside the box and doing something unusual. I think as well, once you hit tech level 6, so you're sitting at tech 7, you're fine for this. At tech level 6, you get access to the Navy issue cruisers. These are also very cheap, disposable ships that you can go PvP roaming in. They do well on a solo roam. They'll also do nicely in a group roam. Find people around you who can help you learn how to PvP, either on your own or in a small roam or even in fleet roams and things like that. Find those people, work with them. The biggest tip, though, and the biggest piece of advice is don't get attached to anything. Go cheap. Like, literally, if you've got a choice between fitting a Caracal out with C-type rapids or just going with Gallows or whatever they are, the green ones, go with the green ones. They are infinitesimally cheaper and don't do all that much less DPS. Expect to lose your ship. Keep it nice and cheap, expect to lose your ship, and just have fun blowing stuff up. Ultimately, the biggest advice for me as a PvPer is get used to enjoying ship explosions. Not kills, ship explosions. Because that way, if your ship blows up, you still get to see a pretty explosion. Elmeo Yeti, will you slip Tuna Lords casually into a sentence to see if anyone notices? And, well, I guess I kind of just did it, didn't I? Anyway, folks, that is the AMA. This is already getting on as a long video. Those are all the questions you guys asked. Thank you so much for sort of coming in on this one. This was a lot of fun for me to do. I hope it's answered some questions for you guys as well. If you enjoyed this, please let me know in the comment section down below, and it is something I will do again, probably either on Reddit or on Discord, whichever. I think Discord obviously reaches a larger group, but Reddit this time was because I wanted to connect with people who, you know, wouldn't necessarily join my Discord, if that makes sense. Anyway, folks, thanks for watching this one right the way to the end. Happy sailing, and see you in New Eden!